As of today, Mission Impossible has ended as a franchise for like 3 years until they reboot it with someone who's not 80.
Presumably.
Connor, what's the plot of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning?
Mission Impossible Final Reckoning is the newest film in the Mission Impossible franchise and is a semi-part 2 that kind of got retconned out of being a part 2, but is still kind of a part 2 to Dead Reckoning. Or at least like the marketing and stuff, I think, kind of tried to space it. Basically,
yeah, they renamed the prior movie from Dead Reckoning Part 1.
At the end of the last movie, Ethan Hunt got a key to a super AI. Now, some indeterminate amount of time has passed, and the AI has been causing trouble all over the world. It's causing dissent. And basically, the AI is trying to hack the nuclear arsenals of the world with the plan to just nuke everybody to prove that it's superior to humans, I guess. Kind of, sort of. So Ethan Hunt's on the mission again with all of his buddies. And by all of his buddies, I mean his surviving buddies and cast members that are willing to come back, like Peggy from Captain America, Simon Peggy from Shaun of the Dead, and what's the guy? Fucking Jerry or something?
The guy from the first movie, the data center featured extra.
The data center featured extra shows up.
And his
Eskimo wife. And then from the last movie, they pulled over the ripped black henchman guy and the Asian chick. I don't remember either their names. Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy. Anyways, they do impossible mission force shit. Tom Cruise has to go into a submarine underwater so that he can steal the original kind of program that would evolve into the entity so that he can combine it with MacGuffin kill switch and then use the key thing that he got to open that, and then he has to upload it into a computer so that he could put it onto a 264 terabyte mini hard drive that was theoretically possible, but actually invented by his buddy. So, hilarity ensues. Tom Cruise got really into flying biplanes and fucking around and doing tricks on it, so that's kind of the climax. As per always, it's like, what's Tom Cruise's extreme sport interest, and let's make a movie around that.
Yep.
You know, the last one was the big motorcycle jump. Number 4, he climbs the tall building. Number 3 was motorcycle stunt, or number 2 was motorcycle stunts.
Yep.
Number 3 was generic J.J. Abrams movie. Number 1 was that, and he's like propels to like an inch of the ground. You know,
All the
Tom
stuff.
Cruise shit, all this stuff. The only problem with the movie, his plot, is that the first 45 minutes has to recap Dead Reckoning because it came out during COVID. Actually, not really during COVID, kind of like just early post-COVID in 2023. The problem is so much shit was coming out then, and it was still kind of awkward because the movie theaters hadn't recovered from COVID, even though COVID was kind of
And also there was the awkwardness of a game called Dead Reckoning Part 1, so people were like, oh, I'll just watch the whole thing when it's...
Yeah, so this one became Final Reckoning, and
that's why they lied about Dune being a single movie, you know?
That's why they lied about Dune being a single movie. That's why people are like... And with all of these, they're always like, next year you'll get the next part. And then it's like, actually, Fast and Furious 11 is delayed for 7 years. Actually, Dead Reckoning is delayed for 3 years. Actually, Spider-Verse will come out in 2 human generations. Civilizations will fall in the time it takes for the next Spider-Verse to come out. So actually it won't be 1 year. Sorry, guys. And that is... It all leads to kind of a feel-good-ish ending. So, Aiden, what did you think of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, the final Mission Impossible movie in the now... 8 Mission Impossible movie franchise, not counting the TV show from the 60s or the TV movies that continue that from the 80s, but the guy didn't want to come back, so they replaced him with John Voight. But it's still the same character. but then he became evil. And then his son was in this one too for some reason because it was a weird legacy sequel, but with like the
He was in the last
same
movie
cast.
too, but I guess
Something
I don't know
of
if
a
they
legacy.
retconned him into being the son or if that
They
was
might have
always the
said
plan.
it, and I didn't notice.
They
I
did
don't know.
not say it in the first movie.
Oh.
No, that's just.
This movie kind of like to shadily retcon.
Shadily. That's the word for it.
Sneaky retcon. Not
Uh,
even sneaky, just act like it was always a thing.
Yeah, the first 30 minutes of this movie is nothing but a clip show, mostly of the prior movie. So if you saw the prior movie, it's really fucking boring and hard to watch.
It's also just kind of like piecemealed.
Yeah, no, it's just like, here's all the stuff you missed when you didn't see the last movie, and you're just going to be force-fed it, and if you did see the last movie, that sucks, I guess. And then there's another 15 minutes after that dedicated to retcons, like the retcon that the guy is John Voight's son, and the retcon that the rabbit foots from 3 was the entity, for some reason. Just gotta tie it all together. It's 45 minutes of clip show stapled on the top of this movie that feels way too long, and it's pretty unwatchable. It's unbearable. Once the movie actually gets started, it's got its moments. It's got some highs. It's Tom Cruise's little airplane stunt show's a lot of fun. The submarine stuff is fun. Those are the two big set pieces, and there's a little bit of fighting just before the submarine thing. But there's also just a lot of waiting around for the ride to start. There's a lot of waiting around. This is not the endless, thrilling, pulse-pounding action movie that Ghost Protocol is. It was a sappy retcon legacy sequel part 2 drag for the most part. It's very reminiscent of No Time to Die, a movie that I did not understand. I don't know enough about James Bond. I did not remember any of the events from the other Daniel Craig movies. So during No Time to Die, I was confused and bored and disappointed.
Yeah.
And thought the weird doomsday plot was stupid.
Well, this movie, similarly to No Time to Die, is the culmination of every plot line for these
All of them.
movies that
You
are
just put
all
them all
very
together.
long and have a lot of plot lines.
and they're also
and they're all smashed together. But this
Also,
movie,
like
for
James
better or
Bond.
for worse, decided to give people the recap if you hadn't seen the movies since you watched them on FX 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if No Time to Die had the recap, I would have understood better what was going on. But also, I probably would have been really bored, especially if I actually knew what was going on. So for
Right.
No Time to Die, I was bored and confused, and the doomsday plot was really stupid, and the villain was really stupid. And all those are true in this movie, except I wasn't confused. I knew what was going on. I understood the plot's culminating. But it's still incredibly exhausting throughout. Most of the characters kind of have nothing to do. Ving Rhames at the start of the movie is like, "Go on, Ethan. It's my time to die." And he dies. And then all the side characters go to the base to meet up with the featured extra from the first movie and his Inuit wife. And they hang out there for a while. And then all the side characters basically just stand around in the backgrounds
And wait for Ethan.
and
to
wait
do
for Tom Cruise to do
shit. Once
things.
Ethan completes a series of tasks that takes like 45 minutes, there's 5 minutes of tasks for the side characters to do, and
Some of
occasionally
them.
we cut away for... Yeah.
The climax, the big plane climax, is intercut with Simon Pegg, Mantis, and Captain America's girlfriend standing in a data center saying, "Once Ethan Hunt finishes the plane thing, we got to do the thing." And then the even less important characters, the black guy, the Inuit wife, and the featured extra from the first movie disarm a bomb, and they're like, "We're gonna die," and for some reason the black guy's like, I guess I'll die with you guys too. But then
I
they
do
don't die.
like that it takes like a half hour for them to reveal that featured extra guy has returned to have a bigger role. Because
Oh, I knew instantly when I saw him. Like I got that right away.
I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Because like I've seen the original Mission Impossible movie like twice, maybe 3 times. I know I watched it on VHS once years ago. I watched it on Blu-ray once, and then I think I might have caught like 3/4 of
It's
it on
kinda
TV
crazy.
here and there.
His reveal's kind of crazy because in terms of what's shown in this movie wastes 30 minutes at the start of the movie over explaining the events of the prior movies, and then it takes them like 20 minutes to actually get into the featured extra from the first movie coming back, and everyone's like, "Oh, all the characters are like, you're that featured extra from the first movie." And if you haven't seen the first movie in like 10 years, you'll be like, "Who the fuck is this?" That's how I felt during No Time to Die, the whole movie.
Yeah.
It was like that effect. And like the retcon with the rabbit's foot, and they show like one clip of Philip Seymour Hoffman. If I was just like some guy who had seen Mission Impossible 3 in 2005, I'd be like,
Was that
I
the plot?
don't know what this means. I don't know what any of this means.
Well, and the other thing too is it's like, was this the plot of? Was it? Was this
No.
like some sort of? No, I know it's not.
In Mission Impossible
obviously,
3,
but-
it's like explicitly
I
stated
feel
to be
like-
a bioweapon, and then this movie, they're just like, hey, you know, it was
They're like, well,
actually
we'll gaslight the.
gaslight the audience.
We're gonna have to gaslight the audience because I was like, I knew that wasn't the case because I just watched Mission Impossible 3 like a year ago. But it's one of those things where they're like, we'll simply gaslight the audience into thinking this wasn't the plot we came up with 4 years ago when we made Dead Reckoning.
Yeah, I mean, there's no proof that
Gaslight
it was
him into
even.
think it was 1996.
There's no proof it was even something they thought up 4 years ago. They might have thought it up in the interim, you know. They might have just thought it up for this one.
The MacGuffin.
That's not
from
something
3
mentioned
being
in
a
Dead
fucking
Reckoning.
bomb. Yeah. No.
Also, there's stuff from Dead Reckoning. Like in Dead Reckoning, there's like all these implications that Ethan and Gabriel had some history, and that's just never touched on or expanded in favor of a bunch of clip show scenes at the start. It's weird. It's a really it definitely feels like the conclusion to everything that was ever going on in this franchise in a really weird way. Sometimes things in this movie just don't even pay off. Like at the start of the movie when Ethan Hunt is talking to the guy who's John Voight's son, he's like, if we teamed up, the Entity would never expect it. And they don't ever team up. At the end of the movie, they just shake hands. But at first when they shake hands, John Voight's son comes up and points a gun at him like he's going to kill him, and then for some reason shakes his hand like just to fuck with him, I guess.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Foreboding move.
I don't know.
It was a dominance play.
I was,
After the man literally just saved 8 billion people.
yeah.
Gotta hit him with a dominance play.
Others, like Nick Offerman, he's there. And he's like the general guy.
The main general.
He's the mean general, and he's like, you should nuke everyone. And then he gets a gun, and you're like, oh, he's gonna like try to shoot the president or something. And then he just shoots some other guy,
Who tries to
and then
shoot
he
the president.
dies immediately. He gets shot and dies immediately. And it's
I
like,
think
I
the
guess,
implication
I guess
is
he was a nice guy deep down, even though they disagree.
I think the implication is he was... The president started talking about like peace and love, and he's like, I disagree or something, and I think he grabbed the gun. I think the implication is he grabbed the gun in case he had to kind of pull a coup on the president. And someone else tried to pull a coup, and then he's like, well, that's kind of...
That's kinda fucked up.
Maybe I actually kind of agree with her. So then he started blasting that guy. I think that's the implication, because I can't
Yeah, I don't
imagine
know.
he grabbed a gun just...
The movie sets
Cause-
out to make him look as evil as possible, and then in the end, he's just not. Which is whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, the action scenes when they finally come around are very strong, as they always are. But they're also strong in the movies that make more sense and are less cluttered and don't have extremely unwatchable recap intros. And weird legacy characters and new characters. I did really like big shout out to the sassy gay black submarine captain that Ethan befriends.
But it looks like
Always calls him Mister. He's like, "Yes, sir, Mister, sir."
He looks like somebody
drop
that
you off
would,
in the middle of the Arctic, Mister.
He looked like somebody that would be like.
He's apparently from Severance. I haven't seen it.
I was gonna say you know what he kind of looks like? He looks like, oh yeah, that's where I recognized him. It's like I definitely recognize that guy. Yeah, okay, Severance, that makes sense. I was gonna say he kind of looked like a dude that would be in like a Shaft movie as like Shaft's barbershop buddy.
Yeah.
It's just because he had like the '70s black dude porno stash.
Yeah.
I
I thought
or
he,
like a Dolomite.
I thought he was
Dolomite's
really,
buddy or something. The reboot Dolomite.
I liked him. I thought he was funny.
Vibes.
Yeah.
He looked like a 50-year-old, but he was like 30.
Yeah, he sure did. I don't know what to think of it. I'm very mixed on it. Much like No Time to Die, I think maybe having a conclusion this definitive and tied up in a bunch of stuff kind of just doesn't work because it just becomes a clusterfuck. And during No Time to Die, the only difference between this and No Time to Die is that in No Time to Die, they're like, "Do you remember that person from Quantum of Solace?" And I'm like, "No. We gotta go visit the guy with the beard and the ring." And James Bond is like, "This is the most evil man ever." And I was like, "I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is."
He was secretly evil, but he was retconned to be buddies with Blofeld because we didn't have the rights to Blofeld till the fourth movie came out.
Yeah.
He was tied up in lawsuits, so we didn't want to use him until we knew we could actually use him.
Yeah.
Pay out. Shake my damn head.
I knew what was going on in this one, which maybe made me dislike it more because I had to sit through the clip show. I don't know. I was immensely disappointed, I'm not gonna lie. It's okay. It's fine. The action scenes are good, but, you know, I would have had a much better time with the clip show removed, and the movie just got on with it a little more, I guess. Connor, what'd you think of Final Reckoning?
I thought Final Reckoning proves that endings are very hard. The first movie with by Brian De Palma came out in 1996, and the series had 3 movies that were all basically one movie that was a weird thriller, and then 2 movies that were run-of-the-mill action film. Not even. It was like a fucking John Woo movie. It was just capturing trends. You got the 3rd movie that was just a J.J. Abrams movie, kind of capturing his hype. Yeah. 4 was something in the middle, and then but by 5, 6, 7, and 8, they were like, "This is the series now." Is what we did in 4. The reason I bring that up is that over 29 years, a lot of shit has happened, and the fact that Tom Cruise is like, "I'm gonna retire," the series that I've been doing for 3 decades, which is, you know, overdue probably, but I mean they were consistently good. Like I was having fun with them, but. It's like any finale. It's really hard to wrap shit up. Finales are often where, like, even smaller trilogies and shit fuck up, let alone, like, TV series and everything. And this movie tried to be a finale. It also they made the mistake that they wanted to do the 2-part. For some reason, Hollywood flirted in, like, 2023 with doing the 2-part again, which was a trend like just before the cinematic universe killed, and then they're like, well, no one else can get a cinematic universe off the ground except Marvel because it has just massive amounts of characters.
I mean, ironically,
but then obviously that started backfiring too.
The last people who successfully did a 2-part movie were also Marvel.
Yeah, well, that might have also contributed to the trend because Marvel kind of did a 2-part movie. They were both very successful, even though they both had, you know, similar kind of 2-part problems. But also Infinity War and Endgame are more removed than I think a lot of these studios knew.
Infinity War has an actual ending of its own, and then
the problem
Endgame basically just erases like half of that by killing Thanos.
The problem is the plan was to make a 2-parter to wrap it up. It's the same problem with Fast and Furious. And 2023 was such an odd year for film where it just like things that were like good bets or sure things just were no longer good bets or sure things. Fast and Furious and this movie and the predecessor to this both underperformed. Tom Cruise is getting fucking old. So they're like, okay, now we're gonna have to wrap it up, but we gotta walk back the two-parter a bit, but so many plot lines are open and no one watched that first one, then now we gotta remind everybody, otherwise in the theater everyone's gonna be fucking confused. But then it punishes the people who actually went out and saw the first one like we did and knows what's going on. Aiden compared it to No Time to Die, which is apt. I mean, it's the same like series finale type of thing. And that was also a long-running series. Only ran about half as long as this. It was 15 years versus almost 30. But the point still remains that there's a lot of fucking plot lines and loose ends that get made up. People don't want to come back. You kill off characters. You want to make something exciting. People get fucking old. And that's what happened here. And I think that's kind of where the sloppy movie came. Because I think, like, Tom Cruise probably came up with his pillars. Wouldn't it be cool if I went and I scuba dived so super deep down to the bottom of an ocean trench to go into a submarine that's been sealed for 20 or for 10 years or whatever, 13 years, and then I stole a computer chip that has the AI to whatever, you guys can come up with the rest, but I want to go scuba diving.
Yep.
And then he said, I also like biplanes and I want to do some cunty fucking biplane tricks.
Yep.
And those were the two pillars that Tom Cruise cared about. And then he cared about wrapping up all the storylines. But then you also have 3 long-standing characters left. One of whom gets killed right away. You got Haley Atwell, who's been in a few of these now. That you might almost... Wasn't she in 5 too?
No.
Or no, not 5.
No, she's
She was in
introduced
6,
in the
7,
last
8.
one.
Are you sure?
Yes. Yeah, she's introduced in the last
she
one.
was.
Because she's like the mysterious pickpocket that he's
No,
chasing.
you're right.
The only other character who's long
Which was
term
exactly
Simon
like
Pegg.
fucking... Well, I thought, yeah, I guess the black dude and Simon Pegg are the two that have been there forever.
Yeah, and they killed Ving Rhames like 5 minutes in, and then Simon Pegg doesn't have much to do until...
Well, you gotta kill off Ving Rhames so you can do the dramatic end Optimus Prime speech. But then there's like a bunch of stock footage to bring everyone else up to speed.
You gotta let people know who Haley Atwell is.
They wanted to tie it into
the second most
everything
important character.
because we're tying it heavily into 7. They kind of fucked themselves. They made their own bet on that. Fine. But then you also have elements of 1, elements
John
of
Voight's
3.
son is there. The rabbit foot that
From 3,
Philip Seymour Hoffman was looking for is there.
And there's flashbacks to I think every movie at least gets a clip because you got, oh, you were doing it to save your ex-wife from number 3 that hasn't been in fucking 4 movies now.
Yeah.
3 movies, whatever.
I like that Mission Impossible 2, as the least important movie, gets maybe like 6 seconds.
Yeah, there's like him in front of the Doves doing like a motorcycle wheelie and just cut to that and go.
Yeah.
They're like, we can't just not.
Nothing else.
Mission Impossible 2 may as well have never existed. Mission Impossible 3 may as well have never existed. Same with 5, honestly. As far as this movie is concerned. So yeah, no, I actually got what was going on in this movie, and I felt like as an audience member who loyally watched all of the Mission Impossible movies, some of them a lot of times, or the recent ones I at least saw once or twice each, I'm
Ghost
punished.
Protocol, one of my favorite movies.
I am punished for knowing the lore, because I had to watch a million fucking clips.
You have to get spoon-fed about who Haley Atwell and the Mexican guy are, because nobody saw the last movie.
Yeah,
so
I do like that they didn't try to like polish up the cinematography on the other ones or lighting to look modern. So you got like sort of like cut to flashbacks, and you can tell who directed it because you'll have one where it's like Tom Cruise in a lens flare ass room with like blue neon lights everywhere, and you're like, that's 3.
Yep.
Then you got him on the Burj Khalifa, which is obviously 4. But
Yep.
then it's
and then
like
you got like the
him doing a motorcycle in slow motion with doves flying behind him. You're like, that's the John Woo one.
Yeah.
Then there's like the gritty one where they're on helicopters, and you're like, Brian De Palma. You know exactly.
You can tell the Brian De Palma, they were recreating it in this movie a lot because it's got like the the little light ray and all the shadows. They
Yeah.
were recreating that a lot at the start of the movie, but also every time there was a clip, it was like all the shadows and light.
But you could also see like film grain because cameras have evolved over 30 years from
Yeah.
camera to early film, or
I
early
also
digital, and now I feel like modern digital is more attuned to like color correction and shit. So you look at like J.J. Abrams, which was pretty. That might have been late film. Mission Impossible 3 might have been shot on film, maybe. It was kind of one or the other back in 2000. I mean, it didn't become the standard till after Avatar. That was the last movie. After Avatar, everyone's like, we can't use film cameras anymore. That's over.
I also like how on top of all the flashbacks, there's also that part where Ethan Hunt goes into the sissy hypno sensory deprivation jack-off chamber,
And then it sees the
and then
future.
he
'cause of
talks
AI.
to the like YouTuber backgrounds, like the moving YouTube background for commentary videos that explains the plot of the last movie to him, just in case, and the plot of this movie.
It was like the backgrounds that people use in those Yu-Gi-Oh card videos you watch. Except instead of Yu-Gi-Oh cards popping up, it would be like Haley Atwell getting shot and then a nuclear missile exploding.
Yeah.
Rather than a PNG of a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking about.
I was thinking about that too. Where it's like just like random textures and movement in the background, so the video doesn't look like it's just flat pictures. You know me, I'll rarely crop a
Badly
picture.
cropped picture on a black background. Why not?
I don't give a fuck. You get what you get. My delightful and sometime and varying quality commentary that you're really coming for. Yeah. I think once you get past that first 30 minutes, what you have is probably the worst film in the late era Mission Impossible era. I consider like Mission Impossible 1, 2, and 3. It's like Mission
pretty
Impossible 1 is a movie, and then they tried to get new legs with 2 and new legs with 3. And then when 4 happens with Brad Bird, then I think the rest are done by Christopher McQuarrie. And
Yes.
Christopher McQuarrie basically did what Brad Bird did, but again.
Yeah.
Brad Bird's is a little bit different, a little bit more of a middle ground between Christopher McQuarrie's, like, here's the standard Mission Impossible format, 1, 2, and 3, which are all
Doesn't help that
very
Christopher
different fucking
McQuarrie is
movies.
basically like Tom Cruise's Yes Man,
Oh, yeah.
which works sometimes because when Tom Cruise says I'm going to do something crazy, Christopher McQuarrie's like, knock yourself out, bro.
No, I think they work well together because he's down for Tom Cruise's stunts, and I think he does a good job capturing them. And
Yeah.
I think the problem with this movie probably was a mixture of a lot of factors. Like,
Yeah.
they probably had meetings, and Tom Cruise even came up in the fucking like pre-movie thing, since we're watching this on the Thursday night premiere type deal. And he's like, thanks for coming, this was made for the theatrical experience. So the reason I think there's 40 minutes of recap, if I had to guess genuinely, is that Tom Cruise is like, I don't really care about the streaming or home media release, I want this to work in theaters. But also realized, like, okay, years ago, one of our first drunk views was Mission Impossible Rogue Nation 17, something, I don't know, 16. And I had no fucking idea, because I'd seen 1 and 3, both on TV. I saw Mission Impossible once on VHS. And then I saw 4, but I hadn't seen 4 since I watched it in theaters like 5 years earlier. In other words, when I watched 5, I was really confused, so I didn't really like it. I liked the stunts, I think, enough, and the action, but I had no idea what the fuck was going on. And I think Tom Cruise was like, that is what's going to happen again, because the last movie didn't do great, because 2023 something was in the water and shit was going weird with the box office. It's never fully recovered, but
like imagine
2023 was like spectacular. Transformers flop, Mission Impossible flop, Fast and Furious flop.
Imagining this from like the perspective of a normal person who didn't see the previous movie and walked into it and they didn't have the recaps, you'd be like, why is Haley Atwell the second lead, and who's this weird Mexican guy who sits in a jerk-off chamber to talk to a computer?
One thing I will
And why
say
does the computer want to blow everyone up?
is a
And why
virtue
is
of-
Mantis here?
One thing that's a virtue of 1, 2, and 3 is that they all work fairly well as standalones.
4 as well, honestly.
Four as well. There is some stuff with like the wife plot and like she's like, I gotta leave you, Tom Cruise or whatever, at the end. But for the most part, I'm willing to concede 1 through 4 work good as solo movies. The Christopher McQuarrie era are like the Mission Impossible. You better just fucking know. You better just fucking know.
Yeah, the Henry Cavill movie, if you hadn't seen 3 in a long time, would probably be very confusing because his wife comes back as a major character in that one, and they just don't explain
Was
it.
that Rogue Nation that he was in, or was that
Yes.
6? I can't remember.
No,
if that's
6 is the Henry Cavill one.
6. So
The
5
name
was Rogue
Doomsday,
Nation.
Endgame.
No, what was 5?
one.
What was 6 called? Was 6 Rogue Nation?
I don't remember the name right now.
I'm
tired.
Wait, 1 second here.
What is this?
Mission Impossible is what the franchise is called. Okay. I have the 6 movie box set here. I got Rogue Nation or the new one on 4K. The newish one. So you got Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3, Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, Fallout is 6, and that
Fallout,
is the
yeah.
one with Henry Cavill.
That's the confusing one.
5 is
you
a little
couldn't-
confusing too.
I guess you couldn't do Rogue. You couldn't really have a Fallout situation again where it's just like, who is this woman who's crucial to the plot and is just kind of around.
Yeah. I mean,
Because you really, if you didn't see 3 before you saw Fallout, you were probably kind of confused, and this one would be even more confusing since it's so directly related to 7.
yeah. I think once you cut out that first 45 minutes, which also, the clip show was edited together like shit. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
because I didn't, but I was like, this editing is weird. They shot like 3 scenes, but they kind of cheated, and rather than have like exposition or them doing stuff, it would like, Tom Cruise is doing something, like he saves the Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy. Then it cuts to like a 2-second vision or flashback. There was also like vision scenes of what could happen because the entity. I forgot about that were happening
entity's
among the
magical power.
flashbacks because the entity's treated like a godly character. And then it cuts from that to him recruiting Haley Atwell in London, which was a totally different country, and he's like on a mission, and everyone's like, "This is a dangerous mission." And then he meets Haley Atwell and gets mugged, and then it's literally 5 seconds. And yeah, so, but after the flashbacks stop, and they're like, okay, now it's basically just gonna kind of be what we intended part 2 to be, without all that extra crap that's no longer necessary. We can actually get to the part where it's
movie.
Dead Reckoning part 2 in the movie, and like, I don't know, a lot of it's kind of boring, not super emotionally satisfying, since part of the problem is Tom Cruise is separated from the crew most of the time, so he just kind of sits there, but like,
It's like 80.
the submarine scene is like 40 minutes, and it's really intense and good, and the airplane scene is like 40 minutes, and it's really intense and good, and like, those two like, half stunt, half action set piece scenes were like, really good, and they add well to the canon of crazy Scientology man does shit that has become a staple since Ghost Protocol. Or really since the start, but especially Ghost Protocol is when crazy Scientology man does shit became like a major thematic element of the Mission Impossible saga. And otherwise, I found it largely disappointing, honestly. So, Aiden, would you recommend Mission Impossible Final Reckoning? Sorry.
I don't know. I have no idea how to feel about this movie. I don't think I really liked it. The action scenes are cool. I guess watch the previous one, and then
Don't bother watching
Fast-
the previous one. That's the trick.
no, watch the previous one, then fast forward to like the 30-minute mark in this one, and then it's a pretty okay movie that's still probably the worst one. So I guess yes, but you can just show up to the theater like 30 minutes late if you've seen the previous one. Connor, would you recommend Mission Impossible Final Reckoning?
I'll have to totally disagree with you because the problem is these action scenes will work best in theaters, so you can't fast forward. So what I would recommend is
just show up late.
you know how you show up 20 minutes late to skip the previews? You can actually show up to this movie 50 minutes late. So if you got the 3 o'clock movie, just show up at like 3:40, 3:45. Find your seat after you watch Dead Reckoning. If you didn't watch Dead Reckoning, then I perfectly recommend you watch the whole thing. I still think the first 40 minutes is just shittily edited together because they wanted to slap something. But if you have watched the first movie in this little duology within the series, I would say skip the first. Literally, just honestly show up 40 minutes in, and you won't miss a damn thing. The one thing you'll miss is that he like recruits Mantis
And the black guy.
And the black guy dies.
He just shows up. And Ving Rhames. Ving Rhames dies like right after the
flashback. So it's kind of the tail end. Yeah, I would say show up like 40 minutes after the post start time. That'll get you through trailers and a good chunk of flashbacks and like the computer is very evil scenes. It'll get you where you need to go. Because I do think like the submarine shit, like my palms were sweating. Great. That was good in theaters. Same with the airplane stuff. I think the parts of this movie that are really good are the really good shit you want to watch in theaters. But like if you're watching it on streaming or on 4K or something, you can pretty much just skip till they stop flashing back, and if you're doing like an at-home marathon of all 8 or something, you might as well just skip the first 40 minutes because it's literally pointless.
Some high highs and some low lows.
That's one thing, Tom Cruise. I hope there's like a
director's cut.
I was gonna maybe not a director's cut, but maybe like there's the theatrical cut, and then there's like the 30-minute shorter, like true and honest cut or whatever, where it just cuts out all the flashbacks.
The Blu-ray should have 2 options on the menu.
Skip
play movie and play movie if you saw the last one.
Yeah. And I mean, you probably don't have to put a different movie file in, just have it prompt to like 40 minutes into the movie. Basically, it's just scene selection, but it just like cuts to where you need to go. It cuts to new and plot relevant stuff. Or maybe there could be like maybe they could shorten the recap where it's like, okay, here's the main. Maybe it'll give you like a readout where it's like, here's the retcons. The one, it'll say like MacGuffin from 3 is now actually the secret thing, which is a thing, but it doesn't really matter except to kind of add the stakes that Tom Cruise is kind of sort of responsible for the whole shenanigans. And also the other retcon.
The guy who plays like sitcom dad man
with the tall,
absurdly, which doesn't matter, but it's
tall hair is the son of the guy from the original Mission Impossible who was recasted as John Voight. That's what it'll say, and then So then you after reading those 2 sentences, it skips into the movie.
It skips the part where he's in the jack-off chamber.
Or, they got Tom Cruise to like shoot like a shitty, like basically what I would describe as like a cameo for the opening of this movie where he's like, thanks for coming to the theaters, guys. Maybe they could do that for the DVD where he's like, you can see him like his thumbs half covering it. He's doing the portrait mode iPhone selfie video. And he's like, hello, DVD purchasers and streaming audience. You have clicked the cut that skips the first 40 minutes. So I just wanted to tell you that John Voight's son, the guy who looks like he literally got off on so many date rape charges to be here today, is John Voight's son. And the MacGuffin from the 3rd movie that no one really remembers except everyone thought it was just like called it just bioweapon MacGuffin, but it's not actually a bioweapon. It's actually this, so that Ethan can feel personally responsible. And then it says enjoy the movie, and it like skips to scene 4 or whatever. These are my kind of options I think would be beneficial to people like me who was loyal to Tom Cruise for fucking 30 years.
Or you can skip number 7 and just watch number 8, but then you miss the cool action. So I guess watch the cool action scenes from number 7, but don't watch any of the plot.
Oh yeah,
and then
you
go
could
to
maybe-
8, and then you get the plot recap.
Well, maybe
in
if they
8.
do like a new box set like this, like what they do with the franchise movies, and they love doing it with Fast and Furious. Like Paramount is the biggest, and Universal is the biggest, but they say now it's the Mission Impossible 6-movie complete collection. But really, then they make the 7th movie, so they reprint it, and then they do it again with the 8th movie. And they've probably been doing this since like the 3rd movie.
Friday the 13th
So
has
maybe-
like 19 box sets.
But it's always been just the 8. Because the rights are fucked up everywhere. So you got the box set that's Freddy versus Jason, Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason X, and then you got 1 through 8. I think there was one box set ever that included all of them. Not the remake. I think it was before the remake, but up to whatever. Doesn't matter. My point is maybe for 8, maybe if you get the 8-movie box set, there's like a featurette where it just says if you just start doing a marathon but don't really just watch this instead of 7. It just cuts the action scenes, or it cuts 7 down to like more like just stuff that will be like just the beats of part 7, or maybe I don't know.
They could
There's a lot
re-edit
of
7 and 8 to be one coherent
movie.
movie that has all the action in it.
But then you'd have to shoot new scenes for 7 where you're like, remember how this is like the MacGuffin from Mission Impossible 3, bro?
Well, they can just have that in like a flashback scene, like in the middle of 7. Ethan Hunt's, there's like voiceover from like a Tom Cruise sound-alike who's like,
AI,
now that
dude.
I think about it, the rabbit's,
Ironically, AI.
now that I think about it, the rabbit's foot was the entity. If you really think about it.
Like one scene where Tom Cruise is on he's parachuting onto the train or whatever, and you can't see him because he's far away, and it's like, what if the rabbit foot is really the entity? And then that's the exposition.
You know that guy.
That guy kind of looks like John Voight.
That guy kind of looks like John Voight now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean that's an option too. A little ADR, a little AI ADR. I mean, studios love AI now, even though this movie is AI bad. The movie,
Yeah.
the AI bad duology, which I'm sure Paramount regrets now, because now they're gonna look awful hypocritical
They're
when
gonna
they
look like
start making
assholes,
the
aren't
next
they?
Transformers movie entirely AI.
Yeah.
Michael Bay heavily influenced and used AI technology to create his new Skibbity Toilet film. The new Skibbity Toilet cinematic universe.
The Skibbity Toilet film is probably the first movie that's going to be released with an AI-generated script.
Just AI generated script, AI generated actors, AI generated
Movie?
movie.
All of it?
Michael Bay was actually AI generated. He was in the Bahamas. He was in the Bahamas and he just texted make Skibbity Toilet movie.
They have Michael Bay chatbot on set.
Yeah. Maybe he spent 40 minutes reading different vowels and
He's like,
pronunciations so
the
they can make an
chatbot's
AI
like, make the
chatbot of his-
Rizzler explode in this scene.
have the Rizzler bend over a motorcycle with his ass hanging out on his way to freshman year of high school. Because it's Michael Bay. Because it's a Michael Bay movie. The Rizzler lifts up his age of consent laws. 30-year-old Rizzler flies to the Philippines and lifts up the age of consent laws in the Philippines.